Welcome back. Hope you're having a good morning. Well, there'll be a lot of stocks in focus, and top of mind is going to be IndusInd Bank. In fact, IndusInd Bank's chairman Sunil Mehta addressed the media about the bank's recent discrepancies seen in the books and what steps the bank is plans to take to rectify this. Let's listen in to that soundbite.
Based on review of all these matters and reports received by the board suspects the occurrence of fraud against the bank and the involvement therein of certain employees, having a significant role in the accounting and financial reporting of the bank. Accordingly, the bank has directed necessary steps to be taken under applicable law, including reporting to regulatory authorities and investigative agencies, and to also fix accountability of all persons responsible for these lapses. The financial impact of all the above has been fully taken in the audited financial statements of the bank for the financial year 2024-25. The bank's approach towards financials has been to start FY 25-26 on a clean slate without carrying forward any of the past issues. The bank has thoroughly reviewed all the lines of accounting and has taken a conservative view in some of the accounting treatments. Following the findings of external review announced on 27th of April 2025, the bank's CEO and Deputy CEO had resigned from their respective roles thereafter. The RBI has advised the bank to submit proposals for appointment of the new CEO for RBI's approval by 30th June 2025. The board is at an advanced stage in the selection process and is confident that the recommendations will be submitted to the RBI in advance of the timeline prescribed.
Okay, that's IndusInd Bank. And if you see the brokerage verdict, despite the stock being apparently okay in terms of valuation, 0.7 times price to book, we've had multiple downgrades. HSBC has downgraded the stock today. IFL Capital has downgraded IndusInd Bank. UBS is putting a target price of 600, so much lower than where the stock currently closed at 770. Let's, talk about the way forward. Digant Tharia, founder at Green Edge Wealth Services, and Hetal Dalal, president and COO at Institutional Investor Advisory Services, IIAS, are now with us on the show. And we also have Dipan Mehta joining in. Digant, the first question is, do you think this is a kitchen sinking kind of a quarter? And your thoughts on the Q4 performance. And it's going to be very hard, the recovery, the repair from here on. It's an uphill task to kind of get the investor and customer confidence back. Both, one, is this kitchen sinking? Is this it? The worst is now in terms of the numbers and the recovery from here.
Yeah, morning, Rima. See, whenever such things happen, we've seen like almost instances of 10 accounting lapses / frauds or whatever you want to call it. So it's not a one-off event that, the top management or the board would not be knowing and, it just happened somewhere, in the side cabin of some employees. It's not like that. I think the rot runs really deep. And see, this is not something that the management came out on its own. These were the findings when the RBI audit happened. So let's be very clear that, this is a tussle between, say, RBI and the bank management. We have seen such tussles in the past with, say, a Bandhan Bank or a RBL Bank. And RBI in India is extremely strict. They are very, very careful about the depositors' money. So they will clean up. They will clean up the bank. But it's a long-run process, as you said. More than a year or two will go. Difficult to trust them at this stage. But, because all these things have come out of an RBI audit, we know that, a lot of it is already been taken. From an investor's standpoint, I think it's a wait and watch. It's not an easy journey. So those are my opening comments, Rima.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Hetal is also with us. Hetal, good morning. First thoughts on this entire issue?
So look, it's not unexpected, right? The minute they announced the entire derivative accounting piece, and then there was this whole story around the microfinance book, and the fact that there is now a leadership vacuum and essentially a leadership change, would expect that the bank would take the big bath, so to speak, and clean up the books to the extent possible. I think there are significant failures around the chain, right, in terms of just the oversight, the internal audit, the statutory audit, and several layers of audits that banks go through. I think what is likely to now happen is you're likely to see a CEO coming in from the outside. That's more than likely because RBI is unlikely, given the fraud that the board has talked about. RBI is unlikely to sort of agree to an internal candidate. You're also going to see a significant review of internal processes and systems internally. It's going to slow down the bank. The bank is likely to be far more inward focused, at least for the next 1 year, till they are able to build the confidence back from depositors and investors and other stakeholders.
Digant, do you coming straight away to what happens next for our audience, a lot of whom would have IndusInd Bank or was sold or would be thinking what to do. You just look at what the stock has done. It's not fallen, even as many of these newer things have come out, right? If anything, I think over the last 1 month, it's up a little bit. So there is this expectation that, this, as Hetal said, the big bath and then the cleanup, and then some new person will come in and, he'll be able to really push this bank in a new, different, better direction. That's essentially equity investors for you. Of course, always hopeful. You've got to be hopeful. What is your sense, Digant, in that sense? What would you tell them?
Yeah, so Prashant, I think the news floating around was that along with a very, very disastrous set of results, maybe IndusInd would announce a very good private banker or, a team of private bankers as the new management. And I think that is what was building in this optimism that, like Hetal said, everybody knew that there is a fraud and there could be more frauds. But even then, stock price was not reflecting a lot of that because there was this optimism of private bankers coming and leading the bank out of this trouble and back to glory. I think that hope, they've not announced the candidate yet, which means that, probably RBI may want to put a candidate who will first be very tight and on the cleaning up side and then think about growth. So I think this whole expectation gets delayed by at least 6 to 12 months. So I think for shareholders, it's going to be a painful journey. Like stock will oscillate between 600 to 800. I don't think there is an existential issue or anything of that sort. So there is not a very big reason to panic because this is RBI intervention, which is getting all these things done. But yeah, quick buck, absolutely no, probably, 10% lower. And then, you'll oscillate between hope and agony, over the next 1 year. It's not an easy task. You look at Bandhan Bank, you look at RBL, it took at least a year to get to some strategy and, some stability.
So Digant, basically the stock becomes a touch me not for the time being, till we get clarity.
For long term, for investors, yes. For traders, probably it will be a delight, Nigel, that, you can short, you can long, based on the news flow and the levels. But I think, valuations are quite okay. And see, whenever, problems with RBL, Bandhan, they don't go below 0.6, 0.7 times book because, we know that RBI does not let the banks fail in India. And, if banks don't fail, they eventually, revive. That's the whole premise of this investing.
Okay, all right. Let's get in Dipan Mehta as well. Dipan, what's your view on IndusInd Bank? It's been a disappointment. I think in the past you have said you have been very disappointed and I think there was some exposure as well out there. What do you do from here on? Hang on, sell out, look to average? What is it?
Yeah, good morning, Nigel, and thank you for having me on your show. I think the time to sell is gone and we, like all other investors, are stuck in the stock and need to take a long-term view as usual because eventually these things will get sorted out. But what I like is the fact that as compared to a lot of other situations in the past, be it Bandhan, RBL, and we've had even Axis, ICICI, actually every single bank with the exception of HDFC has had some issue with spike in NPAs or a default or a fraud or something like that. And IndusInd Bank is no different. But they all come out of it, and I'm sure IndusInd Bank also will come out of it. But they are in a far more stronger position than any of the other stories in the past, be it RBL or Bandhan Bank or Axis or ICICI for that matter. Their NPA still remains there about 3% or so. They have a good tech platform, I would say pretty strong brand and distribution network. It's just that the top leadership needs to be changed, and someone who's more dynamic at the same time understands the business better. If he takes over, then certainly the business can get turned around. And who knows, 3-4 years from now, the stock price can give very good returns from these points, from these levels, sorry.
On a lighter note, Dipan, maybe somebody not so dynamic.
Maybe somebody who's more conservative, but eventually I think, the business is such that it's a growing industry and, IndusInd Bank can certainly recapture the lost ground and lost market share of the past year and a half or so.
Hetal, is this the first time the management has acknowledged of a fraud, of a suspected fraud? What was the prior communication from the management on the word fraud? And secondly, if the RBI appoints a nominee director on the board, what kind of signaling will it send to the investors?
Look, I think the management in the past has talked about the fact that there have been lapses and there are concerns around accounting, but this is the first time they really talked about it as a fraud, and fraud has very severe sort of implications in the banking system. And therefore, the kind of oversight and the kind of intervention that you'll now see given a fraud of this nature and this size is likely to be different from simply saying that there are accounting lapses. I think having a nominee of RBI on the board is par for course for a lot of banks, but this will therefore, if you actually have an RBI nominee on the board, it's going to show a lot more sort of signal a lot more severity of the problem, and RBI stronger oversight in ensuring that the cleanup actually happens. So if you have an RBI nominee on the board, it's actually good from a stakeholder perspective. And it will ensure to a very large degree that the RBI nominee is also there in terms of providing better oversight and control.
Digant, as you said, right, investors were hoping that a marquee private banker name gets announced as a CEO. If that comes through, because the deadline is 30th of June, if that comes through, would that be a buying opportunity?
I think, Rima, this will be, as I said, it will be a trader's delight, because see, we have seen this movie with Bandhan Bank and with RBL. So, just let me rephrase what this movie can look like. Maybe in the next 2 months, you get an announcement. If it's a private banker, the stock will go up. If it's a PSU banker, then we all know that, okay, it's a long journey towards the cleanup. And then, once a new MD, CEO and a new team is announced, they will fire the old ones. Then, some more process issues or accounting issues may come up, because, the new guy would want to come and say, hey, this is not something which I have done. So he'll probably clean up even more. So, the first announcement will give some hope. The stock may go up. Then the cleanup will say, oh, the problems are not over. Then the stock will come down. And then eventually things start stabilizing, and then we can see a secular journey. So I think 6 months, it's going to be a trader's delight, you buy, sell, whatever, based on the news flow. But I think within the next 1 year, for a long-term investor, probably zero returns is what we can expect for the next 1 year.
Net. After all the ups and downs, which, as Digant is saying, is likely. Thanks very much, Hetal and Digant, for that perspective and that quick take this morning. Appreciate it.